Ladies and gentlemen, this is Mike Papuc with the Brokerage Inc. And this topic that we're going to be discussing today with my guest speaker, Trey Owens, is going to be something that is actually very important. Let's talk about this. You call yourself an independent broker, but if your upline would lose their mind if you're left, are you really independent? So Trey, let's talk about control. Let's talk about contracts and why freedom really means you can walk whenever you want.
Exactly. You know, this is such a powerful thing. And you know something, I guess for the brokers who've been around in this business for many, many years, some of you probably get this. But for those who might be a little early in your tenure of an agent, this is really going to be for you. This is extremely important. So you, with great intention, come into this business. You are an independent business owner. You're going to create your own destiny, maybe your legacy for your family. You have so much in mind that's going to just be this path forward for you. And then all of a sudden, when it's time for change, after you develop this relationship with your upline, and now you need to move over to bigger, better things. Maybe things change in life. Maybe you are just exiting the space.
That's life, man. Things change.
It does change. And then all of a sudden, you can't leave? You lose all of that business? It's not fair. Now, I understand in business on our end, you know, in business as an FMO, every FMO does business differently, and there's a reason for certain things. However, this conversation is really for you as an agent on what your destiny or how you should define your destiny for the future and not just for now. So when you come into this business, you're a 1099 agent. You are an independent agent, meaning that you're filing your own taxes. You are calling the shots on how fast and how slow you want to grow. You are in control. So as you are developing your business, you're getting your first few applications after you've gone through that contracting process. You're growing. You have established a presence in your community. Now, here we go using this scenario. Now you are going to just move on and do something different. Maybe you are getting a better contract someplace else. Okay, let's just use that. That happens quite a bit when you grow, okay? But your upline says, oh, well, the contract that you signed does specify that if you leave, we're going to take a percentage of your business or you cannot move your business. Think about that. How would that make you feel? After all that time and effort that has been spent.
I know how I would feel if I was told I was an independent agent. I'd be furious.
Oh, yeah.
I wouldn't feel independent at all.
Yes.
I'd feel trapped.
Oh, yeah, most definitely. I mean, you have every reason to feel trapped. You know, so there's a very quick lesson to this. When you start contracting with a brand new FMO, read the contracts.
That's key point number one right there.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Read the contract. Yes, I understand. You are going to get contract after contract from your FMO, from the carrier partners that you are appointing with. There's a lot to read. But remember, you are a business owner. There is a level of accountability and responsibility that does come with that. And if you skip over those steps, you do put yourself at the risk of not being able to move business when you need to move. So I will say that is lesson number one. Read your contracts and don't let that be a deterrent for you. It's just important to stay up to date on what's happening in your business. And I would say the next thing is make sure you have open lines of communication with your upline. You know, Mike, you know, we've been in the business for a long time. That communication, that relationship goes a long way. Mike, I mean, you've been in this business for a while. You know, tell me, from your experience, how does that communication really make or break that relationship from the beginning to the end of a path for an agent?
Yeah, you know, lack of communication means, as a former agent, you're going to get product knowledge, and you might be able to do that on your own, or you might need a little help along the way. But there are other things that happen in the industry that literally all of a sudden you feel that you're left or lost, or you're just left behind. Yeah. And one of the key things, and I got a text message yesterday. I have an agent here in Texas that was asking the question, "Hey, I heard that ACA is going away." And right away, it's just, wow, that opens up the eyes to the fact that if there's a overall lack of communication, all of a sudden the rumor mill starts, and they might take like a proposed CMS rule, read it a certain way, and then before you know it, they make their own interpretation about these things. Or maybe some of the agents out there don't know about how to access proposed CMS rules. Maybe they don't even know how to comment on these things. So that way, as advocates for this community, you're going out there and giving your opinions on these pieces. But communication, or lack thereof, could either make or break how you handle this industry in general.
It's so true. So true. And that's a perfect example, because if you're not getting that level of communication from your FMO, if you're not able to have it, or if you're not even getting responses from it, that should also mean something for you as you are continuing that relationship. Just as Mike has experienced, he got a text message and he responded with his thoughts and what's really going on in the industry. And so when you're thinking about you being independent, it is up to you to get all the bits and pieces of information that's going to support you.
And, you'd mentioned that, Trey, right? As far as just like, that was a text message piece. A lot of my partners know, in general, this right here, if you need me, contact me. I might be the National Health Sales Director, but if you need any help, if you need that level of support, if you have a question about what's going on in the industry, I've got your back. As a matter of fact, we'll have Monday masterminds to even talk about these things and bring that broker community together to ensure that everyone's on the same page. Check out our newsletters as well. All the resources in general to make sure that you are ahead of these things. But yes, I am just a text message away.
Yeah, and that is just so important. So that I commend you on that, because it's extremely important. I'm the same way. I have 2 cell phones.
Oh my goodness.
I don't know.
I don't even know how you do that.
I sometimes don't know how I do it either, but you know what? It's just important to have open lines of communication. It's just very important. So, again, going through that journey, being independent, I'm going to say this so many times in this here session, because in being independent, you're independent, okay? This communication part of you running your business is really what's going to drive your success. Okay. So I would want to add in here just another level of you being a business owner and what that means if you want to grow, if you need to make changes. That next thing I just want to briefly just talk about is your plan. How do you set up that plan from the beginning with your upline for future growth? So there's one word that takes place in business, and it happens in all businesses. And if you don't do it, you're doing yourself a disservice. That one word is negotiate. Negotiating is going to be your number one thing that you need to do, because the contract is going to be the contract. But if you don't like the terms of the contract, but you had great conversation with the leaders that you're working with at your upline, but there's just something that's there that doesn't fit your vision of growth, communicate. Have that conversation. It's important. You're not in business to make everybody else happy, though having good relationships is important. But remember, it's business for everybody. There needs to be winners on both sides. Be your best advocate and negotiate for yourself.
Things that you can negotiate, ladies and gentlemen. If I leave, what happens to the book? What does that release process look like? Am I going to get that immediate release, or am I going to owe money if there is a release that does happen? So it's one of those things that you guys should really be paying attention to, a lot of those pieces, especially if you're an agency. Let's say if you're released as an agency, but maybe your downlines aren't released. These are little pieces of information that you guys should know. And here at the brokerage, if you ever want to leave, we don't hold people hostage. It's very important to know that. Now, me personally, I'll reach out and ask what we can do better for you, in each and every one of you. But if you guys ever want a release, that release will be granted fully, no questions asked, because we truly believe in remaining independent and making sure that your choices as that independent agent does help you control your future, your growth, your brand, and your business.
That is key right there. That is key. Understanding all of these things, all these topics that we spoke of, this is going to be key. So that being said, this is going to wrap up this segment here. Remember, you're not independent if you lock yourself in a contract that doesn't fit your growth model for your business. So that being said, until next time,